One. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Project Egg Show. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Paul Altero. Paul is the owner and founder of Bubbakoo's Burritos, a restaurant chain debuted in Point Pleasant, New Jersey in 2008. Since then, it has grown to include more than 37 locations, employing over 600 employees. Since 2015, the concept has launched as a franchise model, and the business has been featured in Entrepreneurs Magazine's top 100 franchises in 2018, in addition to being ranked top 10 hottest Mexican franchises for 2018. And Paul also has a ton of other incredibly impressive accolades that I could not encompass in this intro. So without any further ado, please put your digital hands together for Paul. How you doing today?
Well, thank you, Ben, and thank you for the awesome introduction. That was very kind of you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir, and I really do appreciate your time doing this interview. So let's jump right in. What is your story?
Wow, that's a long, that's a loaded question. I could talk for anywhere from. I give you the abbreviated version in about 15 minutes. I give you the extended version. It'll take about an hour. But no, I'm going to give you the abbreviated version. We don't want to bore anybody. Pretty simple, Ben. You know, I grew up. My partner. I do have one partner, Bill Hart. You know, I have to, and I'll represent him in this conversation. If it's okay with you, I know he'd appreciate it. But both my partner and myself, pretty humble beginnings. Middle class, maybe even lower middle class people. My partner grew up in Albany, New York. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, of all places. So it was a little bit of a tough place to grow up, but I learned a lot. I would probably credit a lot of my street smarts with growing up in Newark, New Jersey. My mom and dad, not very entrepreneurial. Mom was a secretary. Dad was a train conductor. And, you know, they were very 9-to-5 type people. But they taught me hard work. They taught me work ethic. You know, I worked from a very young age, as my partner did. And to be honest with you, we ended up migrating down to the Jersey Shore area in the early 80s. I am dating myself. But it was a different way of life in suburban New Jersey as opposed to the city area. It was a good place to grow up. It was a good place to grow up. I was you know, just on the cusp of being a teenager. Ended up again having a happy childhood. Went off to college at University of Delaware. Finished up with a 4-year degree there. During this whole time, probably from about the time I was about 12 years old, all the way into college, I worked in the restaurant industry. So I did everything from, you know, sweeping floors and making bagels and prepping food in the back to being a server, bartender, bar back. Worked in a lot of full service environments all the way up until college. And then in college, I cooked and worked in various restaurants around the university. Excuse me. Soon after, when I graduated college with my 4-year degree, I worked for Nordstrom Restaurant Division, which Nordstrom department stores have a restaurant division. And in that capacity, I was a manager very young, had a couple of really good mentors. Out of Nordstrom, I also worked for Pizzeria Uno for a short while in Manhattan. And then I ended up working for a company called Johnny Rockets. And Johnny Rockets, they were a great brand in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'd say, you know, they probably peaked out probably mid 2000. That's where I met my partner, Bill. And, I think it's fair to say we both changed each other's lives. You know, I was Bill's boss, but Bill at the same time was an amazing individual, hardworking guy, great work ethic, was a real support for me because my role ended up going from store manager to managing the upstate New York market, managing Michigan, managing Ohio, picking up Manhattan, picking up Virginia Beach, picking up Florida, Washington, D.C. So the whole ride in this company I worked for 10 years, I was promoted several times, started again as a store manager, finished up as a regional director of the East Coast. And I don't credit myself entirely with that because, people get you there. You assemble the team that helps you, ultimately get there, but you need the people to do it. And Billy was a really big part of that. At that point, around 2008, the company had sold. Like a lot of other companies, things had changed dramatically. The ownership had changed. And it just seemed like a good time to strike out and start our own business. And in 2008, my partner and I created Bubbakoo's Burritos. Oddly enough, the brand was conceived in my University of Delaware days in around 1994. It was my mock business plan in college. That's true. Anyway, started in 2008, found a great space right down the street from the house that I'd recently purchased in the wonderful town of Point Pleasant. I would say it was an overnight success, but it wasn't. It took us several months to build the business. We created a brand that was extremely different. And you say, well, what makes you different than Chipotle? What makes you different than Qdoba and Moe's? They're all fabulous brands. I have tremendous respect for them. I think they do an awesome job. But what we wanted to do is create something that was a little different, a little bit more cutting edge, I guess you could say. And we started with the proteins. We came up with items like hibachi, cooked to order hibachi steak and shrimp. We came up with items like the crispy buffalo chicken, the sriracha pork, the sweet chili shrimp, the shredded ghost pepper chicken. The list goes on. But we thought by creating different protein options was a great way, because what did Moe's and Chipotle and Qdoba all have in common? A lot of the same offerings. The beef, chicken, pork. And again, they do a great job, but I think people, they're always looking for something different. People like variety, right? They like options. They like choices. So, we started to craft different things. We started with we also, put a lot of starters on our menu. So we have like really cool things like, buffalo curly fries and bacon cheese tots. And we have a signature item that's on our entrees, out of our entree mix, and it's called the Chihuahua. And it's basically a fried rice ball. It's panko crusted. We pump nacho cheese or queso all over it. We kind of dress it like a burrito. It's not low in calories, but I can tell you that people love it, and we sell a ton of them. But the short of it is we crafted something from at least a menu standpoint that was extremely different. A, B, our atmosphere was different. One thing I noticed about Chipotle's, and even though they were very consistent, they did an awesome job, is Chipotle's felt very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very institutional. It was a bit cold inside of the restaurant, and in terms of atmosphere, we decided to create something that was a little bit more vibrant. And, we didn't want to come across like a circus, but we wanted it to have a little bit more energy. So we went with the avocado green walls. I think it's up a Pantone or two brighter in color. We went with a lot of, the reclaimed wood effect. We came up with a lot of these action videos, X Games type videos, things that I would say are very, they're kind of mesmerizing when you sit down and watch them. And I'd say the biggest element, and one of the things my partner and I thought was really important, was the music. So, my partner's an enormous music person, and I have we're about 8 years difference in age, so you'd be surprised how different your palette for music is when you're 8 years apart. But I know the songs that I like, and he knows the songs that he likes. We put them together, and it really seems to capture a pretty broad audience. But anyway, with that, again, we have an energetic environment. We have different food. We've got these action videos. We have great music. The other thing I really didn't get into is the service side of it. Working at Nordstrom for a couple of years, you learn a lot about service. And there's service, and then there's service. And we're believers in wowing people. So when you come into our restaurants, and I'd say, for the most part, we fire on all cylinders pretty well. Our employees are required to engage with you. They're required to talk to you, to actually have a conversation with you, ask you how your day is, where you're coming from. Geez, that's a great hat you're wearing. So we think that's a real big part of what makes people feel comfortable when you walk into a restaurant. We try to get away from the standard when you walk through the door, what can I get you? So that's a big part of who we are. And that's coupled with, of course, upbeat people and personalities. That's coupled with making sure that we get out into the floor. Even though it's fast casual, our plan or intention is to make people feel that even though they're at a quick service restaurant, that they feel as though they're almost at a full service restaurant. So we like people to get around the counter, talk to people, ask how that specific burrito was, ask how their day is if we didn't have a chance to ask them in line, and see if they need refills on their drinks, or if maybe they'd like to try out one of our awesome desserts. In addition to that, the only other thing I'd like to say is we're extremely community engaged. And I know that seems like a standard nowadays for a lot of companies. They like to tout that they're really socially responsible and they're all about giving back. But I truly believe that we're two guys that created a company that genuinely enjoys giving back. And really, we do plug into the community. We're big on fundraisers. We're big on donations. We're big on food. Just, a church will call us up and say, hey, we're doing a big party for 100 people. Would you mind helping us out? We'll say, absolutely. And we'll feed them pro bono. But we think it's the right thing to do. And that's first and foremost part of who we are. But B, it comes back, tenfold. So that's a big part of, again, our concept. So I think you just got the what I would consider the abbreviated version of our brand and kind of what we do and how we operate.
On the personal side, for you specifically,
sure.
How has building something this incredible, something this big, impacted Paul as a person?
Oh, that's the most interesting question that anybody's ever asked me in terms of the word impacted. I think all positive. I mean, I don't think there's anything negative that I could take away from this. It's been quite the experience. It's really stretched me mentally, physically. I wasn't quite sure I was this capable of being able to create what we consider at this point an animal. It's really, we're to the point of liftoff. So, we're kind of coming up on the cusp of about 50 locations signed, and it feels like there's no stopping. And, that 50 is going to easily turn to 70 by year end. We'll turn to 100 by the end of 2020 signed, of course. But we're doing our absolute best to keep up with the momentum of that in terms of, from a construction standpoint. But let me get back to your question. It's really extended me. It's taught me how important it is to have that right structure around you, in more ways than one. I have a wonderful wife, and she really holds it down in the house. I've got 2 young girls. And if I didn't have her and didn't have her as just a wonderful human being committed to the family and really being committed to those girls, it would be much harder for me, right? I wouldn't be able to be as plugged in to the company as I am, and vice versa. From the company side, if I didn't have the great people that we have a great executive team. We have a great vice president of operations. We have a great vice president of franchising. We have a great vice president of construction. And again, there's other levels baked in there, but these people that work for me and for us are very talented. We all have deep relationships. All these people are people that actually come from my past. So they worked with me at some point. So I know them intimately. And that, again, they shoulder a lot of that responsibility, which allows me to spend time and to have, to focus with the family when I can. So it's kind of, a double-edged situation.
You mentioned how building this has given you the ability to stretch. And I'm really fascinated by that because, from the outside, I mean, like you say, you've built an animal, something incredible. Um, and and you are a human being. You are a human being. So where did that really stretch you? Like, I really want to drill down into what parts were stretched. What have you really learned? And what are some of the biggest takeaways from this journey that you've been on?
Mhm. Well, again, I'll kind of defer to my last answer partially, and then I'll elaborate. Again, the power of people, right? One wrong person, one bad hire can really ruin your day, can ruin your week, can ruin your year. So understanding that everybody you hire, even down sometimes to the store level, is critical, because that one person in that one store can create a lot of problems for you long term. And it's the same with the franchise, partners that we have. For the most part, they're all great, and we'd like to keep it on that trend. But in terms of how it stretched me, it's taught me to be more creative. It's taught me to be more resourceful. Um, I'd say, it definitely always keeps you on your toes. So you're always alert. That's good and bad. Always being alert. Again, I'm not saying I don't sleep well, because I do, but you're always in tune and you're always plugged in. The other thing that I've also learned, what it does for me, or what it's been doing for me, is it's always, I wouldn't say, well, forced. I'm naturally creative, but it's forced me to always be creative, right? Because we don't want to be too standard. So we're always looking at different products. We're always looking at different ways of doing things. How do we make, it's my old CEO at Johnny Rockets, Mike Shumsky, a very successful man. He was the president of Sonic, CEO of Johnny Rockets, CEO of CC's Pizza. This is an individual whose mantra was good, better, best. Never settle until the good is better and the better is best. And there's a lot of truth in that, right? It's like never settling. So in our organization, I believe that we are always upgrading. We're always stacking, always trying to have the best talent, always trying to find the best people. But in terms of creativity, what's the next product we can roll out that's going to be the wow product, the amazing product, the thing that's going to blow the doors off the industry? You're kind of always thinking about those types of things. How can we make our stores look better? We're probably on Gen 4. We call them Generation 1, Generation 2, 3, and 4. We're probably, in terms of aesthetics, on Generation 4 units. And we're always making them. We're to always make them look awesome, but at the same time, be streamlined, so they're capable of being put up quickly, and at the end of the day, cost effective. So it's there's really there's just always room for improvement, I guess you could say.
You mentioned how you had a few mentors that taught you some critical lessons as you were on your journey in your career. And I believe you said a lot of those mentors came from Nordstrom's. Can you talk about, and even if they didn't all come from Nordstrom's, can you talk about what the biggest takeaways were from those mentors and why that was so important for your own personal development and growth?
I'm going to bore you mildly with my answers again, but I'd like to just work my way back a little bit. If I could backpedal a little bit on that question and give you the full answer.
Sure.
I always answer things in parts. It's a thing of mine. My first biggest mentor, my father had passed at an early age. So my first real father figure that I really seemed to attach or gravitate to was a professor in school. And this was at University of Delaware. Again, I was a very middle income kid. I put myself through school. We didn't have much money. I took out a lot of money in loans. And I really been put in the path of a gentleman and a great academic professor. His name is Dr. Francis Kwanzaa, like the holiday. But Francis was pivotal in my life when I was in my early 20s. It was a really important years for a young man. But, he really instilled confidence in me. And I'd have to say that was, he had to be, without any reservation, the most pivotal human being in my life. And I give you a great example. I had some confidence, but again, keep in mind that I was the middle income kid. I wore the imitation Nikes growing up. I was the person who was in school and drove a Volkswagen that had to get fixed every couple of weeks. I ate, spaghetti and marinara sauce or ramen noodles most of the time when I wasn't working. Drank cheap beer. But he was the type of person that kind of saw that my confidence was a little low, and he just embraced me. After class, he talked to me, and he asked about my life. He had a lot of interest in me, and one of the things that was really unique about him is he was very charismatic as a teacher. Everybody liked him as a teacher, but he always asked me the same question. This is a really important question, so brace yourself. He always asked me the same question when I doubted myself in any situation. So, for example, they had an opening for president, vice president, secretary, treasurer of the hospitality club at the University of Delaware's hotel restaurant management program. And I said, oh, that's kind of neat. And he's like, well, why don't you run for it? Because why don't you run and be president? And, these words from then till today still resonate through me. And he always said to me, why can't, I would say, I can't do that. I'm not designed for that. I didn't have much leadership. And he always said, well, why can't you do it? And he always, and he must have repeated those words, 100 times more since then. But he always used to ask me, why aren't you the person who's capable of that? Why can't you do that? What's keeping you from doing that? And, I don't know, there's just something in the mind of some people, again, when you grow up, I wouldn't necessarily, again, say I had low self-esteem. I just didn't have high self-esteem. And, I just didn't think I was I would ever be a president of something, a CEO of something. And when you have somebody that's like a little bird on your shoulder, just always, chirping or whispering in your ear, well, why can't you do it? Why can't you do it? You can do this. You can do this. Don't fool yourself. Other people, that are less talented than you are doing these things. And, that's really powerful. And, when somebody is, again, kind of feeding you that, or at least inspiring you like that, you start to ask yourself, yeah, why can't I do that? And something shifts. And it did for me. And from I'd say 1995 till today, that was probably the most important, person in my life to really, swing the way I thought. That's like buzzkill. How do you do any better than that, right? But no, I had a lot of great mentors. As I evolved and I grew and I was out of school, still to this day, Dr. Kwanzaa and I are still good friends. We're both busy people. I actually lecture back at the university frequently. They asked me to come down to the classrooms and speak. But, then I went to Nordstrom, and I had a great general manager when I was an assistant manager. His name is John. And, again, he just taught me how to work hard. He taught me the power of people. He taught me the power of speed and efficiency and organization, which brought me to Johnny Rockets. The gentleman that now works for me, who I think I stated earlier in the conversation, is Ron. His name is Ron Bidnost. Ron Bidnost hired myself and my partner to be employed at Johnny Rockets, which is really kind of interesting. Now he works for us. But Ron is a very talented guy. And again, he's a few things that I could say about him is extremely hardworking. He's ethical. And no matter whatever it takes, he gets the job done. So he's an incredible person in terms of what he's actually capable of. And that's a little infectious. So now you have the professor back in the 90s who's building up your confidence or instilling confidence. And now you have somebody who's a doer and at all costs will make things happen. That's a pretty, I wouldn't say deadly. Deadly is a bad word, but that's a pretty amazing combination. And then I'd probably say after Ron would probably have been my my vice president of operations, who was my direct report for the solid 7 years. The last 7 years I was at Johnny Rockets, and his name is Mike Kozlowski. And the one thing awesome about Mike is, number one, he's a very intelligent person, and he was the one who taught me how to think my way out of things. Ron was a little bit more brute. He's the guy that would walk right through the wall to get the job done. Mike would be the guy to teach on how to scale the wall, without hurting yourself, or figure out how to pick the lock to the door to go through it. And Mike was a very cerebral boss. He was very smart, and he would, every time I would have a situation where, again, I could go to Ron and say, well, how would I do this? How do I need to accomplish this? He would pretty much just tell me what to do. And 99% of the time he was right and it worked. Mike was a little different. Mike was, again, more of a thinker. So when I went to him and I said, well, I have this problem, I have this situation in this market, what should I do? And he would say, well, don't ask me what you should do. He would say to me, what would you do? And he'd make me like mentally, it was like mental exercise, and he really started to create a thinker in me, which I was more prone to taking orders and just getting things done. He started to teach me to be a lot more strategic and a lot more broad in how I thought and figured and solved problems. So, I don't know. I was very, very lucky. I like to use the word blessed in my life to have these people, because they all taught me something a little different. And it was all a game changer in how I am as a leader now.
So it seems like those top three attributes would be the self-belief, self-confidence, the ability to execute and to take action, and the ability to think critically, right?
That's right.
You mentioned how Dr. Francis was, or Professor Francis was the most influential, and
Yes.
that was the individual who believed in you and helped you question things and like, why can't you?
That's right.
Why was that the most important thing for you? Why was that so pivotal?
Sure. Well, think about it. I mean, somebody could teach you to walk through a wall. Somebody could teach you to be a critical thinker. But if you don't have the confidence, I think that's the most important quality is really having the confidence to do certain things. Not to say the other two things aren't important; they're extremely important. But again, it's like one without the other. It just doesn't work. In leadership, it just doesn't work. And that confidence is important. It's important in so many aspects. It's important. It was important when I met my lovely wife. It was important when I decided to make the leap into signing a lease on the space that I wasn't sure about, but I knew I could do this if I really put my mind to it. It gives me the gusto till today, when I just got off the phone previous to speaking with you, when speaking to a potential franchise prospect. I need to go into that knowing that I feel good about what I'm talking about, and that we can do this and that we can get it done. So I don't know if they're excellent examples of uses of confidence, but I think they are.
It's interesting how you've accomplished so much and you've built something so incredible. And I know I keep saying it because it's true. And the fundamentals that we're talking about are not a specific marketing strategy, or not, how do you do, how do you build this particular process or system, but it's fundamental building blocks of human performance, of confidence and execution and critical thinking. That's incredible to
Right.
me.
Yeah. Thank you.
So on the way, on the journey, what were some of the biggest obstacles that you did face, and how did you overcome them?
Mm. Yeah. Well, I can tell you that I can give you. I have a very fast answer. If I can answer something very quickly, it's the right answer. But we really went into this uh, undercapitalized. We didn't have a lot of money, and my partner and I, when we took a leap of faith here, was pretty much tapping a home equity loan, and the home equity loan, for the most part, built the store, and we even had to even reach into our credit cards a little bit to put that project together. And my partner really bit the bullet on that. And for a while, because I had to continue working for another company, I didn't mention that, but when you open up a business, I don't know too many people who make money immediately. Some do, and they're fortunate. We weren't. So with that, I had to actually take another job just to be able to do double duty to pay the bills. But it was really my partner really taking a leap of faith. And fortunately, again, he was younger than me. He didn't have as much financial responsibility. He lived in my house, but he didn't take a paycheck for a long time. So, at the end of the day, if I had to do it all over again, I certainly would have been better capitalized. We built this company from that day till today with basically taking the profit, taking the proceeds, and reinvesting. And it's been basically a constant reinvestment for the better part of, I would say, 7 years, 8 years. And at the end of the day, what's even more ironic is we're a company that holds very little debt, which is even neater. You would think we're leveraged or saddled with a lot of debt. We're not. We've been very smart about it. We haven't been greedy. We've been always taking that money and reinvesting our money. So I think that's a good thing.
When you made the leap from being an entrepreneur to an entrepreneur and starting your own venture, what were some of the critical lessons that you had to learn? Like, what were some of those fundamental business skills that you needed to learn in order to be successful on your own venture?
Again, layering in resources and people at the right times. And what I mean by that is, we couldn't start this company like a lot of companies have a grand vision for their company right out of the gate. They were heavily capitalized. They formed a major team right out of the gate. We've been a little bit more prudent. We've been, stacking or layering in overhead as needed. So one of the biggest things that has made this company successful, I believe, is the efficiency in the company, even down to the store level. We don't drive our labor through a percentage-based process or system or metric. We do it more through productivity. And really what that means is we expect high productivity, which means people work hard. And we put that same burden on ourselves as the executive members. So you had to learn that, and that's something that I picked up a little bit in my past life, again, with Johnny Rockets and other companies. But when it's your own, you are very careful about everything. So you learn to put your foot on the gas in some occasions, and in other occasions, you learn to get on the brakes or to at least slow it down when you need to. And I'd like to, if I could, just go back and say our growth was pretty steady, but it was slow. So, again, in year one, we built one restaurant. In year two, we built another restaurant. Three, our growth wasn't rapid until I'd probably say the last 3 or 4 years. But the first 6 years was, I would say, generally very conservative.
What is something that entrepreneurs, business owners need to learn from you, specifically you?
Yeah. Patience. In retrospect, in 2008, when I started this company, I was very excited about it, and so was my partner. And I can tell you that I thought, if you were to say where do you see yourself in 10 years, in 2008 or 2009, I would have said, oh, I'll probably have about 500 to 1,000 restaurants by then. I guess that was my confidence really kicking in back then. But I really thought we would have been much further along by now. But I think that, it's a process. And, what's the most important thing? Proof of concept. I mean, proof of concept. So people are everything. I don't want to, again, I'm not putting people on the back burner because you need the people, but I'm just saying, you need proof of concept. And really, in order to, I think, to be successful, you can't open up one or two stores that are doing well and say, well, we're going to franchise it. Now, some people do that, and they do okay. But, I believe in, hey, let's really show, let's create, a company. We need a sample here. We need a large sample that says this works. And, yeah, you can get lucky on one. You can get lucky on two. You might even get lucky on three. But can you get lucky on 10? And, we thought that was important to really prove the brand out, that it can work, that it has legs, and that this is something that works. And I have to say that even today when I speak to people, because again, we're not a big company, and I appreciate you touting us as some conglomerate here, but we're really pretty small, and we're getting there. But if people love the fact that when I speak to them on the phone, or I meet with them live, and they we have almost 30 franchise restaurants, and we have the 10 company stores. It's a big talking point. People love that we have skin in the game. They love that we understand the business. They love that we have the resources out of those 10 stores in order to properly support the growth. So to go back to your question, patience is a big one. And that kind of ties into my second point. If you think it's going to take you 5 years to accomplish, it's probably going to take you 10 years to accomplish what you thought you were going to accomplish. And that goes the same for the dollars. That goes for the same for the units. And again, I'm generally speaking, there are some people that do meet their goals, but that's been my personal experience. Yeah, I think that's the most important, is the patient side of it.
One of the things that I feel, and this is just my opinion, but I feel it's one of the bedrocks of humanity is connection, on many, many different levels. And I'm interested in learning what your philosophy is on developing deep, meaningful, and genuine connection with another person.
Okay, let me think about that for a moment. I would say, it goes back to, again, the team that we have right now. And in terms of connections, how we operate, I mean, again, Bill and I have been, work partners and friends for 20 years. It's a long time. Ron, he's part of our executive team, 20 years. Gus, who hails from Dunkin' Donuts, the last, I think, 7 or 8 years, also worked for Friendly's for a short while, which is where I met Gus. When I did double duty, I worked at Friendly's for a while as a multi-unit manager, and I got to know him intimately. And then our head of operations, he was a gentleman that was a manager for us back in my Johnny Rockets days. So you talk about, I think ancestral might be a bad word. Fraternal is probably better. But, I know these people intimately. I know their significant others. I know their children. They're friends. But at the end of the day, we all have a mission to accomplish. They understand that, we're the leadership. We're not, and I don't want to misconstrue anything here. We're not a party organization or anything like that. We're people that know every day what we need to do and we get it done. And again, it's those strong relationships, it's those strong bonds that I think really, have us all on the same playing field in terms of where we're going with this company.
I'm really interested in drilling down into that. You're talking about developing the bonds. I want to know how you do that specifically, because I feel like everybody goes about building relationships and developing those bonds differently. And I really want to know how you do that.
Mm-mm-mm. Well, again, treat them like human beings. I try to spend time with these people, and not even so much, on a work level. I think it's great to go out and have dinner. I take my wife out; they take their wife out. We go and we connect like people. We could sit down and have coffee, and more often than not, we talk less about business and more about what's going on in the world, what's going on with each other. So I think that's important. I think even as a company, though, if I could just bring it back to how we are as an organization culturally, we don't walk into the restaurant and bypass the dishwasher. We walk in, we shake hands with the dishwasher. We tell everybody in the restaurant that they had a great week the week before, or if they didn't, they say, you know what, we'll have a better week this week. And we trust them and we empower them. We know we know we have great people, and we just we need to keep on keeping on. But that's how we treat. I'd like to at least believe that people understand that we really do care about them. One of our best practices that we do is quite frequently we have something we refer to as a manpower meeting. And the manpower meeting is my favorite meeting. Why? Because it's all about people. And what we do is we sit down with a sheet of paper. And when it comes to the company ops manpower meetings, we're going to go down the whole list of all the managers in the stores. And we go from store to store, from the general manager to the assistant manager to the supervisors. We don't get into every employee in every store because that would be quite the meeting, but we get into the leadership of every store, and I want a ranking on those people. I want it slightly quantified, but I want an A, B, C, or D grade. That's just again a number or again a metric we use to kind of indicate how well they're doing, or what their opportunities are. And we really start getting into those people. I want to know what makes them tick, what makes them happy, what makes them unhappy, what motivates them, what demoralizes them. And we get into that in all of these meetings. What aren't they good at? And what do we do? What do we need to do to get them, from a C to a B, or from a B to an A? Because when you're an A, you're promotable. So we're always having a lot of discussion about people. Where again, we are a people-driven company, and I can't say enough about that. And I never really want to lose sight of that. It's when you have so much going on, you can feel it breaking away from you a little bit. But that's my job. My job is to rope it back in and to do my best to make sure that we're staying on top of that. And again, that everything comes from the top, so it's important. So my head of operations sees that, so now he makes that a priority to go into a store and to imitate that, or to to kind of respond the way I would respond if I walked into a store. And we think that's critical as an organization. It's the same with the franchise partners. When we meet with the franchise vice president of franchising, and we have our meetings on the manpower of the franchise community, I want to know about all the franchisees. I want to know what they're not happy about. I want to know, tell me a little bit about their QSC scores. It's a store assessment. Tell me why they're, are they happy? Are they not happy? What do they think we could be doing? We could be doing better. And we get into those things. And I think that's very, very important.
Where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 20 years from now?
20 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. People ask me that question sometimes is, when are you, when is enough? When are you walking away? And that's a really hard question to answer. I don't know if I have a firm answer, but I can tell you a couple of things. Right now, I'm taking it upon myself to get a double master's degree right now from Syracuse University. So I'm working on that part-time. I found a way to squeeze that in, amongst other things. But I think education is huge. I don't think you can ever learn enough. B, at the end of the day, if I sold this company in 5 years, which is probably pretty unlikely, But if I sold this company in 5 years, or it's 10 years, or it's 15 years, or even 20 years, there'll probably come a point when, you know, I'll say, job well done. And I have aspirations of teaching. So for me, I found that through lecturing and speaking with the younger people of America and the different universities. I've spoken at Cornell. I speak often at University of Delaware, my alma mater. I'm sure Syracuse will be knocking soon because that's a recent endeavor. And then even local high schools, I found that I really, really enjoy giving back, inspiring the youth of America. I think it's important. I think in life, making money and building stores and accomplishing things is wonderful, right? I mean, that's the indicator, or that's that's what the world likes to translate or define as being successful and doing really well. And yeah, there's an element of that, sure, right? Because financial success is great, right? It provides, but it's ultimately not going to make you really happy, truly happy. And I find again that if I can situate myself financially and be able to pay my bills and provide for my girls and make sure that they go to hopefully great colleges and not have to sweat like I did my whole life because I didn't grow up with a lot of it. But for me, self-actualization would probably be teaching at some type of university. It doesn't have to be Harvard. It could be community college, but it's just that element of giving back and almost doing what Francis did for me in the mid '90s. I think that's huge.
What's one thing about yourself that you think is a part of who you are that we didn't talk about today? In other words, what did I miss?
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that I'm a perfectionist, and and in some ways that's really good, and in some ways that's really bad. I have high expectations of people. I have high expectations of my wife, my partner, people that work for me. I have high expectations of myself. It's a really good thing, and I wouldn't say bad, but it can be problematic sometimes, because not everybody thinks the way you do. And that's the one thing I've learned in life, it took me a long time to really realize that not everybody is going to think, act, and be like me. You probably wouldn't want to live in this world if that was the case. But, it's, I don't know. I'm a perfectionist. I'm somebody, I don't know if this is off topic, but I have a strong faith. I have a strong faith in God. So, that's important for me. What else can I say? I don't know. That's a random question. What else can I tell you about myself? Like to boat and ride motorcycles on my downtime, even though it's becoming less and less. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that I'm really enjoying my life right now. It's been a tough road, and a lot of people, and I sometimes when I talk to some of the younger people and the millennials especially, and this is no hit on the younger generation, but it's one of those things where you have to do what you have to do so eventually you can do the things that you want to do. And everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants everything now. And it's just not practical. It's not, you're going to be horribly disappointed later in life when you really haven't made the investment in things. And I mean, everything from real estate, to buying a home, to, getting married and having children, to, taking that job that you might not love every day, and wake up love doing every single day. It's going to take time to build up. It's going to take time to get to the point where you're going to be in a position of maybe some authority, and the things might be a little easier. And a lot of people don't want to put the time in. And I think that's a real important component of being successful in life. Like I'm thinking about teaching 15 years from now, and I know I need to start my master's now on a part-time basis because I know it's going to take me probably 5 or 6 years, to accomplish that double master's. So I think thinking ahead and thinking out is critical. And again, making the investment in doing things that you may not want to do. So, and if it's a Friday or Saturday night and I have a free night, and my wife is like, "Well, I'm a little tired. Why don't you go out with your friends?" Instead, I'm reading, accounting. I'm watching accounting lectures and reading material. But I think in the long run, it's going to be very rewarding.
Paul, I want to thank you very, very much for coming on the show today and sharing this time with me. I really do appreciate it. And I have one more question for you, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay.
I'm 24, and the reason I say that is because of the question I'm about to ask. But what's the question or questions that I should be asking you, specifically me, asking specifically you with your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, your genius, that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Oh, you're good, Ben. I have to begin by saying that a lot of your questions have looped me a little bit, tugged at my heartstrings a little bit. But what questions? I think almost the last question segues into an answer for that. And I think give me the nitty gritty, give me the truth. What does it really take to be successful? And don't sugarcoat it, because we're in a world of sugarcoating everything and everything being presented on a silver platter. That should be the question. What does it really take? And what it's going to take, again, is it's going to take commitment. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take creativity. It's going to undeniably take a great team and great people. And it's going to be not accepting the word no, and even when you're going to hit a lot of roadblocks, things are going to be really difficult from time to time. There's going to be probably 100 times you're going to throw your hands up in the air and say, "I don't want to do this anymore." And you have to just keep your nose to the grindstone and just keep at it. I saw something on social media, and I referred to it one other time, and it's so accurate. And you might have seen it. It's pretty popular, but it depicts two people digging a tunnel underground, and the tunnel kind of goes deep underground, and the person, you could tell, dropped the pickaxe and is walking away, but only had about this much more to go to what he was ultimately looking to gain or get or achieve. And then the person at the other top is just still chomping away at the bit. And it's a little tacky or cheesy to refer to some Facebook, social media, meme or whatever. But the bottom line is there's a lot of truth in that. A lot of people I've seen a lot of really talented people in my life who have, walked away because they're quote unquote not happy, or it was too hard. And they've made the leap to something else, and in essence put themselves right back in the same position, sometimes for the worse and sometimes for the better. I mean, I think at the same time you have to use your instincts, right? If you're in something that's really bad, and I probably wouldn't advocate staying, but some people just, they just don't want to put in the time. They feel inside of themselves that they're not where they need to be, and they should have been picked for this promotion sooner, or they should have had, this job at this point in their life. But that's just not how it works, and I think it comes down to, again, staying power. One of the things I'm telling you, if my wife doesn't put it on my tombstone, one of my employees will go at some point and chisel it in there. But I always say, stay the course. That comes up a lot when I'm in restaurants, when I'm in meetings. or I'm giving advice, and I always say the same thing: just stay the course. I know it's rough right now, but I see where this is going. Let's just stay the course. And we've been staying the course since 2008, and I think we're doing pretty darn good.
Paul, once again, I want to thank you so much for this time that we've been able to share. I'm very grateful, and it's truly been an honor to speak with you, and to meet you, and to get to know you the little bit that I've been fortunate enough to be able to do. And I also want to acknowledge you and thank you for employing 600 plus people, and helping them provide for their families, and being a mover and shifter and a provider in a world where it's very hard to come by. So I want to thank you for the good that you're doing, for a lot of people, and just say thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate the interview. I appreciate the thought-provoking questions. And obviously, you know how to reach me. So if there's anything I can do for you personally, don't hesitate.
Thank you very much for that. And to everybody who's watching, listening, I want to thank y'all. Y'all are the reason that we do this, or that I do this. And I want to thank you for the support, and tell y'all that I love you very, very much from the bottom of my heart. So thank you. And we'll